Welcome to Dad Bod's Crab Cakes and Sports, where husky, middle-aged men share insight on the latest Baltimore sports news. From the bank to the yard and beyond, we're breaking down the Ravens, Orioles, Terps, and more. Baltimore's best sports podcast starts now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and good morning to those that are listening to this podcast a day later on your way to work. Jason, and Mike, and John here, and we have a fourth special guest here, Mr. Connor Newcomb from the Locked On Orioles podcast. Connor, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. Thank you guys so much for having me on. I'd love to be here in the midst of a 32-16 Orioles season, but we can't always get what we want. So I'm still happy to chat about the O's and glad you guys asked me to come on.
Oh, absolutely. Now, after 8 straight losing losses in a row, pardon me, today, like you said a couple minutes ago, much happier times. Not too happy because things still aren't that great in Birdland, but a lot better now than they were 24 hours ago. So I guess the most important question that we have to kick us off, since you are now our second guest ever on this show, what is your favorite snack? We're dad bods, so we all have dad bods. We love snacks. So what is your favorite go-to snack?
I could eat a dangerous amount. The pretzel nuggets that are filled with peanut butter. If you give me like one of the tubs of those, that can get out of hand. The amount that I just my arm will move itself to just grab another pretzel nugget. They're just small enough where it doesn't feel like you're eating a bunch of them at one time, but there's not even a brand loyalty to those. I'll even like the Harris Teeter brand ones, just the peanut butter inside the pretzel nugget will absolutely do it to me.
Oh, fabulous. All right.
Hey, you're getting some good protein. Getting protein and carbs out of those things. So, keep eating them away. I'm everyone's life coach. So, you know what, Connor, if that's what makes you happy, keep going for it.
It's basically a meal. There's a meal right there.
Yeah, basically.
And Mike, how about you? You like peanut butter, but usually it has like nuts and chocolate and
it's got to be like trail mix. I need some chocolate. Throw some good strawberry preserves on a sandwich. I'm all about peanut butter, but I need to make it as unhealthy as humanly possible. But I'll eat a pretzel bite. I'll eat one of those bad boys.
Outstanding. All right.
See, I prefer like the peanut butter whiskey. That's my kind of thing.
Fair enough.
All
right. Well, I guess just thinking, we just covered about, again, 8 straight losses. So just touching on today's game, there was a lot of good things. Again, some not so good things with Felix Bautista there at the end, Connor. But, what do you take from this game? Is it just, I don't want to say a fluke, but, I listened to your podcast earlier today. You kind of said that was it for you for the season as far as your hopes and dreams for the playoffs. Anything changed from today's game?
Not really. I think the best part is the biggest swing coming from Adley. We've kind of been waiting for that all season. He had not homered in over a month until he left the yard on Wednesday. He had not homered off a lefty all year until Wednesday. It has been rough. And I've talked a lot about how he's been one of the hitters on the, I guess, most unlucky side so far this season. But at some point you're into deep May and it's just the ball's got to start to fall in. So that was nice to see. I think the other part that was interesting is, not sure this means they're going to turn things around, but I think it'll be intriguing for how the rest of the season goes. It was the first time they had used Felix Bautista in back-to-back games all year. When they said they were not going to do that early, they did it for the first time. It seems like it's right around the timeline that they said, hey, we'll be really cautious with him for about 2 months and then we'll let him loose. And we're almost at the 2-month point. Now, the unfortunate part is 2 of his worst outings of the year were the 2 back-to-backs. So you get a little worried about, is he really ready to do it at this point? But I think that was a nice part too, that they were able to get him out there. And if he, comes back out Friday or Saturday and looks fine and he says, oh yeah, I was perfectly healthy coming through the back-to-back, I think that's good for the long-term health of the Orioles. I don't think that changes their ability to get back into the race. But if Felix can go back-to-backs and at some point here, if he can pitch more than 1 inning in a game, we can maybe at least say, okay, the 2023 version of Felix Bautista is here. And I don't know if we'll need that version, unfortunately, this year, but when we need it next year, it's nice to know that he can at least do that again coming off of Tommy John.
Absolutely. And I mean, to me, just watching the game, I mean, I thought to myself, like, who else would they have brought in that situation? It was more of a matchup. They had the matchups that they wanted. It's just, it came down to the execution for me, at least. And, I mean, as far as matchups and the way that the Orioles have been doing things so far this year, I mean, it's well known that Brandon Hyde loved his matchups. And speaking of Brandon Hyde, we're now going in a different direction. And I know that so far they didn't get the reaction that I'm assuming they were hoping they were going to get, which was a shot in the arm. The team starts going in the winning direction. As far as managerial searches going for next year, I mean, have you heard anything? Is there anything that you want? Anything that you could then foresee them doing as far as a manager guy?
Yeah, it's, I haven't heard really anything, and it's tough at this point because it's actually kind of absurd that 3 big league managers have been fired before the end of May. That, especially nowadays, is really, really not something that happens. And the 3 openings are very different, right? You have the Rockies, who might be the biggest disaster in professional sports, and I say that as a fan of the Washington Wizards. I would still say that the Rockies are the biggest disaster in professional sports at this point. You have the Pirates, who have Paul Skeens and have promise, but their front office and their ownership has been an absolute disaster. And then you have the Orioles, who theoretically, even if this year totally tanks, should still be in a winning portion, a winning era of the franchise, a team that could be a winning team in 2026. If those are the only 3 jobs available at the end of the year, the Orioles job is going to be worlds above the other 2 in terms of attractiveness to the top managerial candidates. So there's going to be a job that opens, right? I mean, one of these other teams in the next 4 months is probably going to have things fall apart, make a move. My guess would be the Blue Jays probably move on from John Schneider. I'm sure they're getting tired of him, but I would think still the Orioles job is more enticing than even the Blue Jay job if that gets added to it. So the Orioles could be able to get who they want. I just think it's so interesting to be in this spot because the last time the Orioles were here, we knew they were going into full rebuild. We knew they were going to hire a first-time manager, a guy who they thought could handle the clubhouse and kind of fight them through, knowing that he was going to lose at least 90 games every season. And Brandon Hyde ended up being the right guy to at least do that part of it. Now you could get a first-time manager, but you also have the door open to a lot of other options. And what you don't see a lot of, minus Craig Counsell, is guys leaving current manager jobs and taking other ones. It doesn't happen a lot. And so the guys who are available are bench coaches and young guys who have never managed before. And then your older school guys who have been out of the game for a couple of years, Buck Showalter, Joe Madden, Joe Girardi, or guys who just got fired. And so, for example, I think Scott Service is a good manager, but he got fired by the Mariners last year because they had the similar problems that the Orioles were kind of having over the last year and a half. They just could not get over the hump. I think Derek Shelton is going to be a good manager one day. Yes, he was giving nothing to work with the Pirates, but he just got fired by the Pirates. Is that a good look for the Orioles to be the next team that hires him? Probably not. So I'm super intrigued about what direction they go to. I really doubt it's going to be a Buck Showalter type old school guy. I mean, there's really no chance it's going to be exactly Buck Showalter, but a guy in that ilk, a Joe Girardi, a Don Mattingly, guys like that who they would go to. I think they're going to try and pressure someone out of their current job. I have no idea who that could be. But I think the young team and the ownership, if they are truly willing to spend next offseason, that's going to be enticing enough to try and get somebody out of that job. And really, the Cubs paid Craig Counsell out of Milwaukee. They just said, we'll make you the highest paid manager. Come over here. And the Orioles seemingly should have the resources to be able to do that. If they don't, I really like Rodney Linares. He's the Rays bench coach. He's been a manager forever in the minor leagues. He's managed in the Dominican Republic. He managed the Dominican team at the WBC. The Orioles clearly like David Ross. They wanted to interview him for the bench coach job this offseason. That's an interesting name who's been a manager before. And then a name that I think will get 50% never, ever do that, and 50% why not? What do we have to lose? Is I truly do think the Orioles will kick the tires on Carlos Beltran, to potentially be their manager. He's obviously never managed, but he was almost the Yankees manager. He was the Mets manager for 2 months until he got fired when the trash can banging scheme stuff came out. And he's got a huge connection to Mike Elias. And I think he could be a good big league manager. It's just, AJ Hinch is back in baseball and doing well. Alex Cora is back to managing and generally doing well. Carlos Beltran has less managerial experience than those two, but the Mets and the Yankees were willing to take a chance on him before it all kind of went to hell. I would be very intrigued on that name specifically because he is in baseball. He's working in the Mets front office, so somebody's giving him a job at least. I think the first tires they'll kick is someone going to be willing to leave their job. I just have no idea who would potentially be willing to just leave a current manager seat just to get more money at this point.
Connor, with the way the Orioles are going this year and Tony Mansolino at the helm currently, and I would assume that interim label will last for most of the season unless something goes drastically even more horrible than it has. What does the end of this season look like, or what does the duration of this season look like? Is it one where we're going to get some of these guys from injury back? Are we going to get Cowser back? Are we going to get a healthy Westberg at some point this season? And we're going to kind of maybe level out a little bit. I don't think we are as bad as we're playing currently, and we may not be as good as we were playing 2 years ago, let's say. Or is it the situation where, with us not playing so well, we don't rush these guys back. We're kind of slow play it and kind of ride out the current roster and maybe look to trade some veterans toward the trade deadline or toward the All-Star break. So what is your kind of view on what's going to go on as we move in throughout the middle of this season?
Yeah, I think you're spot on with saying they're not as bad as they've played. Like even with everything seemingly going wrong, just the raw talent on this roster is not as bad as a 16-32 record looks like. It's going to even out some. I think the injury plans and the guys coming back are going to depend on their general timeline. So for example, Colton Cowser starting his rehab assignment in Aberdeen this week. That's because a broken thumb is a broken thumb. Once it gets healed, it might be a little more susceptible to break again, but it's not like he's having, full knee reconstruction or any, this giant serious injury where you got to really, really take it slow. Like once that thumb heals, I don't even think he got surgery on it. Like it just heals and you give it time and it heals up and you're ready to go. So at that point, if Colton Cowser's ready June 1st, doesn't matter if the Orioles are 16 games above or below 500. Colton Cowser is one of your everyday players. Get him back in the lineup and let's go. Westberg's a little more interesting because he's had multiple setbacks on his hamstring already. You don't want to push it where something becomes a tear and it becomes surgery and you're losing the whole season. And the guys who will really intrigue me will be the Kyle Bradish and the Tyler Wells situation. They're probably due to be back sometime shortly after the All-Star break. That would have been if the Orioles were in contention. If, we get to July and they are truly still out of it and it looks like they're going to be sellers at the deadline, they're not going to push those guys. And if there's any setback between the two of them, the Orioles could just shut them down for all of 25 and say, let's have a normal full off season. Let's get you fully healthy in September. You have a normal off season and you're both ready on day one of pitchers and catchers next year. And yeah, it stinks to basically wipe 2 seasons from both of them. But when one of them is a lost season for the Orioles as a whole, it kind of doesn't hurt as much because even having a healthy Kyle Bradish right now, I'm not sure really fixes all of the bad stuff going on with the Orioles. So that's the one where I think the record will really change how they treat that. If the O's find themselves back close to 500 and Bradish is like August 1st, it's go time. I think they might throw him back into that rotation and see what they can get as long as he's healthy. And then in terms of the veterans at the deadline, I don't see a scenario where there are buyers. There is just such a big hole to dig out of. I can see a scenario where they get back into it, but that's a spot where they're trading some of the mid-level veterans. They kind of keep most of the team together and they get healthy and get hot. And they have a season like the Yankees did in, I believe, 2016, where the Yankees they had a good young roster and they were getting Aaron Judge to the big leagues and some of those guys were starting to show up. They were fine, but they knew they weren't a playoff team. So they did the Aroldis Chapman trade and they got Gleyber Torres back at the deadline and they kind of retooled. And they actually played better down the stretch in 2016 after they traded away pieces at the deadline. That got them Gleyber Torres. And all of a sudden they went to the ALCS in 2017 because they had kind of rebuilt. The old Yankees had kind of gone. They pulled far enough away from Jeter and those guys, and the new crop of young Yankees, Gary Sanchez and Torres and Judge had all come in and they were kind of ready to go. There's not as much of that good of a crop for the Orioles coming up. It's kind of already here, so it's a little bit of a different timeline. But I could see a situation where, they extend Sugano, but they can't extend Mullins, so they trade him. And, they can't extend Eflin, so they trade him, but they're able to keep maybe O'Hearn around, so they don't trade him. And they kind of play things down the middle. They talk to guys about extensions, the guys who aren't going to stick around. They trade them for guys who are AAA ready at least, guys who are not going to help them in 4 years, prospects who are going to hopefully help them next year, I think is probably what would be that plan once they get to July.
Now, based on what happened this offseason and I guess a lack of a lot of moves or any real significant moves, especially offensively and whatnot, do you predict or do you think that they will be players and not just attempt to be players in free agency, but actually be able to go out and compete with the bigger spenders, bigger boys, and actually be able to get some of these guys? Like I believe the Kyle Tucker might be a free agent this year, and guys like that. I mean, or even have any interest in something like that.
Yeah, I mean, Kyle Tucker specifically, I would just put him in pinstripes at this point. The fact that they did not get Juan Soto, I mean, that Juan Soto money is probably going to Kyle Tucker. So get ready for that at the short porch for the next 10 to 12 years. But in general, if Mike Elias does not see what went on last offseason and what's going on right now, and the fact that David Rubenstein is willing to open, I think there's a lot of misconception about what the relationship looks like between the two of those guys. And Elias refuses to spend Rubenstein's money, even though he's telling him, spend my money. It's really, I think the relationship is David Rubenstein does not want to get involved in the baseball operations at all. He wants to fund this team. He trusts Mike Elias. And he says, take my money when you need it. If you think it's not worth it to spend my money for that player, don't. I don't think Rubenstein's saying, give this $400 million to Blake Snell right now. And Mike Elias is saying, no. I don't think it exactly works like that between the two of them. Now, what I will say is, if butts are not in seats for the entire second half of this season, David Rubenstein might come to Mike Elias and say, look, I'm not going to tell you which players to sign, but I might set aside a little bit more of a fund that I would like you to spend on a legitimate star player and not say, hey, get interesting and spread this around and get some more depth on this team. He might go to Elias and say, I want a player that's going to lead the headlines for a week that we sign this offseason, that's going to get butts back in seats, that we can either put at the middle of our order or put at the top of our rotation. And it can be our signature Corbin Burns style move this offseason that we did not have last offseason. And I think that is where things could change for the Orioles. I don't know who that player could be. Is it Dylan Cease? Is it Framber Valdez? Is it Michael King? One of those guys who's a kind of a 1/2 starting pitcher who, if you pair with the Bradish, Rodriguez, maybe Eflin rotation, things look a lot different going into next year. Or is it, I doubt it's going to be Tucker, but that next tier of hitter free agents below Tucker, the semi all-star level guys you can stick in the middle of the order if you do have some more questions than you thought you had about this young core of position players. I think that move has to be made. Now, you don't want to force it. You don't want to give out a Chris Davis style contract just to spend the money. And I think that's what's nice is Elias is not going to do that. He will take the heat if they don't get the big player, knowing that it didn't work out and we weren't just going to spend money to spend money. You can at least say that they didn't really spend just to spend this offseason. I mean, the guys that didn't work out were on 1-year deals. At the end of the day, those deals are going to go away and you can reset it next year. But it's very annoying that they didn't go get even a mid-tier marquee free agent besides the oft-injured Tyler O'Neill. So I do think that Elias hopefully realizes. And if he doesn't, I think if it continues with, now I don't think they're going to be 16-32 next year, but if it continues with kind of a 500-ish ball club after they don't make another giant splash, I think Rubenstein would fire Mike Elias, not in a you're doing bad at baseball operations way, but in a there's nobody at the ballpark right now and fans are mad and we aren't the team that I bought that was coming off an AL East victory. I think that is what would force him to make a move like that. So for Elias, you got to just think, you know what? Let's give out the 5th year or the 6th year for that starting pitcher. Let's go the extra $50 million. He's going to let me do it. He's got to be a little riskier. He's got to take that risk averseness that has gotten him here and just kick it out the door, because I do think this is going to be a wake-up call for Elias, that he can't just do things only his way and get to where he wants to go, because things hit on an incredible level for the Astros. They had so many things hit right, including the trash cans that they were certainly hitting right. But they won another World Series, of course, without Elias, but they won another World Series without cheating. They clearly built a really strong organization with a lot of good players. And even without the trash cans, like, they're still one of the best teams in Major League Baseball that year. But they clearly built something. They also had a lot go right. And Elias is looking at, if things don't go right, we need to have a bunch of good players in here. And we kind of don't have any veterans that we've spent on. And so I think that is the thing that will be a wake-up call. Because I think the nice thing is, honestly, if this team won 84 games this year and disappointed and missed the playoffs by 4 games, and Elias could be like, we had some injury bad luck, 4 wins is 4 wins. They can go on a coin flip. This team wins 70 games after winning 101 and 91. That is going to be a kick in the where for Mike Elias, I would hope. And if it's not, he just needs to go. So I think he'll understand that by this offseason.
So I wrote some notes down. I was writing notes before and then crossing things off as you talked about them. So kind of my big things are these two things. One is, what are we looking for in a manager? What do we need? It almost seems like Hyde was not the light a fire under your butt, scream, yell, get the guys going type guy. And I don't know if that was the best thing for this team. But then the second part to that is, Holiday is looking good. 8-game hit streak. He looked terrible on his first swing in extra innings. Second swing just launches it right up the middle. So he's clearly taking those steps. So what kind of guy do we need to bring in that then can take a Holiday, take a Adley, and kind of move them to the next tier of players that, they're drafted number 1 overall for a reason?
Yeah, I think it's tough for me to answer that question. That's why it was tough for me to identify which, I think they're going to, again, go after a sitting manager, right, by throwing some money at him. But it's hard to know which one, because you hear this talked about a lot. For example, the Manager of the Year award. I think it was very deserved for Brandon Hyde to win that award in 2023. Who would have thought he'd take the Orioles to winning the AL East from 2 years prior? They lost 110 games. I think you give that award to it. But when you also think about it, Manager of the Year basically goes to manager who won the most games versus the games he was expected to win that season. That's basically what Manager of the Year is voted on, because the most important things for a manager to do in 2025 are really hard to see in the box score, are really hard to see even if you're watching a game, even on a night in, night out basis. A lot of it is managing the personalities and relationships in that clubhouse and managing the amount of information that is coming from the front office, making it digestible for your players, having good relationships with your coaching staff that you can delegate things to those different guys in the dugout to get that information to the players. Yes, of course, there are bullpen and pinch hit decisions, and when a guy's really hurt, when he needs a day, when he needs 2 days, when he needs the IL, a lot of these different small decisions come in there. But it's not the days of the Earl Weaver type manager. It is not the days of, I set my own lineup every day. I make my own roster decisions. Nobody's really butting in on this. That's just not the job anymore. And so I think it is much of a people manager as it is a baseball manager job at this point. I think Brandon Hyde was really good at the people managing stuff. And you can tell because he made it out of that rebuild. That clubhouse could not have been a fun place to be in, night out, when that team was losing 19 games in a row back in 2021. And yet he kept it together so much that not only did he keep his job, but he managed a team that won the American League East 2 years after that happened. So I think you're looking for someone with kind of the temperament in the clubhouse of Brandon Hyde, but maybe someone that's just done the job for longer. I think that's maybe what they need. And it's so interesting what the Orioles did this offseason. They let go of Freddie Gonzalez, who, not the longest tenure manager ever, but he managed for a solid amount of time for 2 big league ball clubs, the Braves and the Marlins. And they brought him in to be Brandon Hyde's bench coach to basically help him out, be a veteran manager who could help out a first-time manager. The fact that they let Freddie go this offseason tells me the Orioles were not planning to fire Brandon Hyde at the first chance they got this year. If they were, there'd still be a veteran manager in there. I haven't done the math yet, but I'd be pretty certain to say that the Orioles have the least experienced MLB coaching staff in the dugout right now that both Hyde and Freddie Gonzalez and Jose Hernandez, who have been in dugouts forever, who was also let go this offseason, like most of those guys are first, second, or third year on big league coaching staffs. And so I do think they'll want someone who has the temperament of Hyde, but more experience in those situations and really more experience of, I've gone through bad times with a good team. Brandon Hyde's been through bad times, but with horrendous baseball teams that were supposed to be going through bad times. Guys who can have good players out there in front of them and know how to battle through that and get out onto the other side. I mean, that's a thing that I think Kevin Cash does a great job of in Tampa. The Rays always have talent, but they'll just have random years where they win 70 games and then they'll win 95 the next year. And I think Kevin Cash kind of keeps things together. And that's why I think he's seen as one of the best managers in the major leagues, is because he just, anything can be thrown at you when you're the Rays and there's no payroll and you have a million different players coming through, and he just keeps that thing together. Now, I don't think the Orioles have to do that as much anymore with Angelos out and Rubenstein in, but I think they're looking for someone who can just be a little more experienced in that sense of bad team misses expectations, but still able to kind of pull things together. And again, I don't really know who that person is out there. That's kind of Elias and Rubenstein's job to find that, I think.
I thought a guy like maybe like a Jason Varitek would be a great person to get in there. Switch hitting catcher, was on those Red Sox teams, has the experience winning the World Series things. I thought a guy like that, kind of bringing somebody in off the street with little to no experience might be somebody who would be good for this team.
That's why I like Beltran, because you have all that and you also have the relationship with Elias that I think would make him more comfortable in making that move. If, of course, he's still the one here helping to make that decision. That's kind of where I threw a guy like Beltran into that mix. It's just about, do you worry again bringing in a first-time manager? Now, Beltran had been in MLB clubhouses for 20-plus years. You don't have to worry about that part of it. But the manager job is different than even he was the vocal leader of that Astros team the last year when they won the World Series. That's still different than being the manager. That is still a different set of responsibilities. And so I wonder how much they're going to weigh that, because there's a lot of good candidates out there who would be first-time big league managers. Do they want to stay away from that route? That's what I'm kind of interested in. I mean, I have to throw the name out there because we're talking Orioles. I mean, Ryan Flaherty is a legitimate candidate for this job. As funny as that is, he is a legitimate candidate to get this job. I would be shocked if he does not get an interview for this job, which if you said that to me 10 years ago, I would have laughed hysterically. And now he's going to be a big league manager at some point in the next 5 years. It's fantastic.
One thing that I find very interesting is you had mentioned that they would possibly look at a sitting manager. And it makes me think, and I've been actually thinking about this. I brought this up on one of our shows a couple weeks ago, that I wonder if Mike Elias, Sig, the rest of the guys thought that Brandon Hyde outkicked his coverage. Like, he started winning a lot sooner than everyone expected. Clearly, even a little more than what Elias expected at one point. So I'm wondering if they thought that rebuild, at some point, they had a manager in mind, somebody that they always wanted to kind of take the next step. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, or if I'm just crazy, but that was something that I've been thinking about for a while.
No, I think when you bring in a Brandon Hyde, and we've seen this with a lot of quote unquote rebuilding teams. I mean, the Astros did it. They had Bo Porter just limp them through that situation, and then it was AJ Hinch time. And speaking of sitting managers, I wish the Tigers weren't the best team in the American League, because he's not leaving that job. But man, would that be nice to talk about a relationship with Elias in the front office already to go and get AJ Hinch. He's not leaving Detroit. They might just win the World Series this year. But beyond that, you have to have somebody else in mind after 2021. Now you give him 22 because you say, all right, let's let Hyde manage Adley and Gunnar and just see how this goes. And I think it went so well in 22. Had 22 been another 100-loss season, I don't think Brandon Hyde's the manager. I think they bring in somebody new for 23. And then as soon as 23 happens, he's got so much runway after that. But for good measure, he wins the manager of the year. They win 101 games. They win the division kind of out of nowhere. He's got that job for a while. But I Jason, think that there was at least somebody in their mind in 21. And it could be a laundry list of guys who they were thinking about, from the Terry Franconas of the world to, the next hot bench coach who's coming up the pipeline. There's probably candidates. I would guess that when the Orioles and Mike Elias and John Angelo sat down in November when they hired Elias, I would pretty much guarantee you Brandon Hyde was not their number one choice. But I would bet that after interviewing, 5 to 10 candidates, they thought, hey, this guy's going to be here for some terrible times. And Brandon Hyde, out of all the guys we interviewed, seems like the best guy to be able to handle that situation versus be the best big league manager. I would guess that is how that turned out. And maybe it's one of those guys. Like, we don't really know the long list of guys they interviewed. Maybe there's somebody back then that has a job now that they were looking at, like, hey, if he doesn't super work out there, let's go get him. But I have to think there were some names in that room. Now, there's a chance some of them could have come from Angelos, and obviously he's gone. More than likely they were coming from Elias, and obviously he's still here. So I'll just be intrigued with how the search goes. I think the part that stinks is they pull the plug in May. You can make a hire before the season ends, but that would only be if you're going after someone who's not currently employed. So if you really wanted Scott Service, if you really wanted Joe Madden, if you really wanted Joe Girardi, you could make that move. Remember, Buck Showalter came in August of 2010 and got a little bit of a head start because he was working at ESPN, and the Orioles hired him to come back in. So that is possible after Tremblay was fired and Juan Samuel, I believe, managed the team for a little bit before they brought in Buck. So it's possible, but that's such a small cohort of guys who are out there. I mean, unless they really want Derek Shelton or something like that, and he just gets fired from Pittsburgh and they bring him into Baltimore, which would be very, very odd, something you would rarely see. But other than that, you got to just kind of sit here and stew on this for the next 4 months. And so we'll see if, guys start getting in their ears. And I don't know if you guys are Maryland basketball fans, but managers have agents. And even if they are sitting in jobs, they hear things from people. Even if it's not their agent specifically, they will hear things. And they know about other jobs that are opening. And if they are going after a sitting manager, I bet that sitting manager is going to at least know it in the back of his brain before this season is over. So I'm intrigued to see how that process all plays out.
Connor, I had a question for you. We're still waiting for that long-term contract for one of our younger players. And I mean, I know at this point that they're not at their peak value, and it seems like a pretty good time maybe to pick the one that you think is going to be the one you're going to build around and maybe pay them now while they're not performing at peak level as compared to maybe next season or hopefully in the future when they are. Obviously, Scott Boras has something to do with that, with several of those Orioles players. But do you foresee Rubenstein opening up his checkbook and us finally getting that one player from this young group signed long term?
I think you have to, because you cannot build and build and build this again and again and have players this talented just continuously coming through your system. You have to keep some of them around. The Orioles are the only team in baseball right now who does not have a player on their roster who is on a contract extension. They are the only team in the major leagues who does not have a player on the roster under a contract extension. You can't really operate without players under an extension, and yet the Orioles are trying to do it. Now, obviously, Gunnar is the number one most wanted candidate. He's also going to be the most expensive. He's also a Scott Boras client. Honestly, I have a lot of thoughts about the extension stuff and how this is going to play out. I worry about multiple things, and this season so far makes me worry about all those things even more, which is the players start to see the cracks in this whole plan and like, ooh, if 2026 doesn't turn things right around, is this even going to be a sustainable winner if I stay here? There's also a stigma in Major League Baseball around certain cities and living there and playing there long term. And unfortunately, Baltimore is one of them. I think that has to be part of this conversation. San Francisco, pretty openly among the players, is another one of them. And that's why the Giants have had trouble recently. And I think bringing in Buster Posey into that job has helped them kind of connect with those guys and be like, look, I'm Buster Posey. I'm a Hall of Famer. I played here my whole career. It's fine. We're going to be baseball guys and we're going to talk baseball. And I'm going to get Willie Adames and Matt Chapman to sign, longer deals to be here. in San Francisco. But unfortunately, Baltimore's on that list. You have to think about that. I mean, the Orioles have signed and drafted a good amount of good old country boys in the draft. And, I don't know if they see themselves long-term in Baltimore. That's a part of this that I haven't it's not a fully shaped opinion from me, but it's something I think about throughout this process as well. Do I see Gunnar Henderson being the face of Baltimore sports for the next 15 years? I hope so, but I don't know if Gunnar Henderson sees that. And Gunnar might just take the best offer he gets, and hopefully that's from Rubenstein, but Boris is going to want him to take it to free agency. And could there be a time in 2027 or 2028 where there's a Orioles Juan Soto type situation where the Orioles publicly make their best offer to Gunnar Henderson and he turns it down and they say, there it is, and they deal him? I don't want to get too far down the road, but that's something that could come up here if they really can't get these deals done. You got to go after Gunnar, though, but at the very least, you got to get one of these things done. So whether it's Kauser, whether it's Westberg, a couple of the guys who will be cheaper and a little more possible to extend, I think. Westberg, I think, is a Boris client, but Kauser is not. I think if Kauser comes back healthy and has a big year this year, I think if you give him a modest extension this offseason, that at least gets some of the fans off your back. Eflin would be a great candidate. Hell, if you wanted to give Sugano 2 more years with the way he's pitching, why not? Just get somebody locked up around here. I think a guy who'd be a great candidate for one of the pre-debut extensions this offseason would be Samuel Basayo. I think that would really work out for a lot of people. I think he's going to be a great player. They have to do it, though. Again, they are the only team in the major leagues who has not done it. And Angelos is no longer the owner, so that's not the excuse anymore. It's not going to be easy to get it done with Gunnar or even Adley with the struggles he's had. It's still not going to be easy to get it done. Or with Jackson, right? That's a guy that comes from generational wealth. He's not going to be jumping and waiting to get that contract at the snap of a finger. He has the ability to wait it out as long as he wants. But I think for a Colton Kauser or a Jordan Westberg, I think that's kind of your sweet spot. If those guys get healthy and produce this year, that this offseason you try and make a move like that.
Excellent. Well, Connor, I know we could pick your brain all night long. I do have a final 3-part question for you, and then we'll let you move on with your life outside of the dad bods. But my first question is, what is the final win total of this season for the Orioles?
I picked 90 at the beginning of the year. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it's not going to be 90. I think they will right the ship enough where this is not a disaster. I think they'll get healthy enough and play. They'll go on a winning streak at some point. Every team does. They'll play better baseball than this at some point. I'm going to say 76. I think they pull it together enough where they're not really in it, but it's not a total embarrassment. So I'll say 76 they end up with this year.
Okay. And fast forward to next year. Is this a playoff team in 2026?
I'm going to choose to be optimistic because I would like to, and I would like for them to be a playoff team in 2026. They should be much healthier than they've been the last year and a half. The rotation should be worlds better. And I think they will bring in that top flight kind of player in free agency or trade this offseason that is similar to the Corbin Burns ilk that can, the move that can headline your offseason, that can dominate the talk your entire offseason. And I think that will be enough to get them back to the team that they should be.
Oh, man, from your lips to God's ears. Okay, final one. And this is a big one. We're talking next year this time. We fast forward. Who is the current manager of the Baltimore Orioles in 2026?
I am going to say David Ross is the manager of the Orioles. I think the combination of big league managerial experience, catcher, they love to hire catchers as managers, a well-liked guy, both in the clubhouse and publicly, ESPN analyst for a while. People think he's funny. People like him. And the fact that the Orioles already were interested in him to be the bench coach this offseason tells me that there's at least some conversations there. So that's going to be my educated guess at this point. It's probably going to be wrong. I wouldn't hate that hire, but I wouldn't absolutely love it either. But again, who really knows how much which of these managers is really going to impact this team until we see it, right? Maybe David Ross with 20 years in the big leagues and winning a World Series is exactly what the Orioles clubhouse needs to be a leader in there. Maybe he's just another dude who comes in and is like Brandon Hyde. They know each other. Brandon Hyde was with that Cubs team that David Ross won the World Series with. Like, maybe he just comes in and he's another Brandon Hyde, and they win some and then they lose some again, and then we're in this cycle again. I mean, it's so difficult to know, but that'll be my educated guess for now.
Well, Connor, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time this evening. And can you let everybody know where they can find you?
Yeah, Locked On Orioles podcast. I'm not really on social media anymore because the only thing worse than watching the Orioles lose 8 straight games is watching a tweet come in. So I will, I'm just mostly on the podcast and on YouTube. So Locked On Orioles, you can find it wherever you get podcasts 5 days a week, 30-ish. They usually run closer to 40, but 30-ish minute episodes recapping the night's game, roster moves, data, stats, minor leagues, all that good stuff. We're on YouTube as well. As I mentioned, if you just want a podcast, but also want to look at my face with my name underneath of it for some reason, it is also on YouTube as well. But even in the bad times, I will still be covering these Orioles 5 days a week.
Perfect. Well, thank you very much, Connor. And please don't be a stranger.
Yeah. Thank you guys for having me.
Take care now. All right, everyone. We are back. Now it's just Jason, John, and Mike. No more Connor. That was pretty good, though. Do you guys know everything Orioles you need to know, Mike?
I love having smart people on here. It's so fun.
Sorry, John. I think he means that you might need to take a step away. Sorry. Oh, there goes John. Perfect. Okay. It's the Mike and Jason show. Oh, John. Oh, hilarious. Okay. No. Good stuff. Good stuff. Love the David Ross thought, by the way. I actually said that last show. I believe Jim said that as well, that he would love to see that. Very intrigued by the Carlos Beltran idea. And I cannot ever remember this guy, but he mentioned the bench coach in Tampa, also very intrigued there. So what do you think, John? Any thoughts there? I know you seem to be intrigued by the David Ross.
I like the David Ross idea. I really think that we need a strong leader in there, and one of the catchers is probably our best, but a guy who has the experience, who's been around the block, who I think earns the respect. I think the big thing is going to be who's going to earn the respect of the players. I think a Ross or a Beltran, or even whoever else that we can find, can earn some respect in that clubhouse. I think that's going to be it, and to see what he can do. And I think, unfortunately, he didn't help my hopes for the season at all.
Oh, well, I mean, reality. Mike said it. He's a realist. So, yeah. Mike, what do you think? What are your thoughts on those managerial choices and whatnot?
No, I appreciated your guys' discussion. I'm sorry I missed it last time, but I feel like a lot of it has to do with what Elias does. I mean, I know the manager makes a difference, obviously, but I think there are a variety of candidates that could be successful here. I just think it's about the ingredients on this team that are going to make us truly successful. So it's like Connor said, they're dependent upon Mike Elias to use David Rubenstein's money this offseason and get somebody who can truly contribute at the top end of the market. And I think that turns everything around. I like the idea of David Ross. I like a catcher, Girardi, maybe. I don't mind that one either. The Ryan Flaherty thing intrigues me a little bit. I really enjoyed how he played baseball here. I think he wasn't a superstar, and a lot of times, and that's some of those backup catchers or those catchers that were just journeyman catchers, weren't exactly superstars on their team, but they understand what it takes, the daily grind, day in and day out, to win baseball games. And the nice thing about having a catcher there, obviously, is they know how to call a game and that aspect of the game as well. But I like the idea of somebody like a Ryan Flaherty who knows the Orioles organization as well, and played a pivotal role here in those early 2010 seasons where we were turning things around. So any of those candidates, I think the biggest thing I had issue-wise with Hyde was just kind of the lineup back and forth stuff kind of drove me nuts. So whoever can come in here, and like Connor said, build relationships with the players, and then just kind of get some stability in the lineup, I would be pleased with.
Excellent. Well, I mean,
there's one thing in the game today, Jason. Did you watch the game today?
I did.
Okay. Did you hear they were talking about the one thing about Baltimore is they've had stability in their coaching staffs. Is we've only had two managers in the last we've had three managers in the last 18 years, which is one of the top, I think, with top three in the league. So the coaching staff hasn't had a ton of turnover either. So that there's something to be said about that as well. To think about, okay, do you bring a guy like Ross in, a young guy, younger in terms of manager guy, who's going to be around for a while, to try to keep that stability, and how much that stability actually helps, with the younger players who, won't be young forever, but, may be able to turn this thing around with some, stability without having to always be looking over your shoulder of, am I doing enough to keep my job?
Right. And I think that's the idea. The idea was to bring somebody in. Like I said, I do think that Brandon Hyde outkicked his coverage. He outkicked the coverage of what Elias thought he was going to have, and that he was here much longer than anyone thought. And they just weren't. I mean, you're never going to fire a guy that is trending upward like that and then post manager of the year type stuff. So you're kind of then in that position where, okay, now you have to make a change. But this change, I mean, the one thing I do like, and I compare this to the Indians from a couple years ago, from even the Yankees a few years ago when they missed the playoffs. I guess the year we won the division, the playoffs, and then they bounced right back. Even the Rangers, not last year, but the year before, and then they missed the playoffs last year. You still have that whole core of possibilities there. You just have to add to it. And the one thing is, all of those teams added to it. We have not. So this offseason will define where this is going to happen, where this is going to go the next 5 years. So again, we could do this all night. We do have some other things that we want to cover. Let's start, Mike, with you're back. You sound like you've been drinking for the last 5 days.
I'm here. Yeah.
Don't dodge my question.
I have had a drink or two, but I am back, and I'm better than ever, except at golf. So it was a great time. Whenever you can get away with the boys, it's a lot of fun. We just kind of unwind a little bit. So that was definitely a good time. The golf game needs some work still. And when you go down to Myrtle Beach, if you guys are familiar with the golf down there, you play up here, and there's a pond here or there, or maybe a sand trap. You go down there and it's like, oh, look, the whole fairway is a sand trap, and there's a little piece of green in between, and then there's like a lake and a river, and then there's the ocean. So good luck, and hopefully you can find a piece of grass to get your ball to. So when you go down there, the scores tend to escalate a little bit. But I had a couple good rounds, so played some beautiful courses down near Pawleys Island. So the south end of Myrtle Beach. We had a group of 12 guys. We played a Ryder Cup. Our group won, which was kind of fun. It was like we have the last match and ended up winning, which is kind of cool. And then we played a couple different games with our different golf groups. But again, a lot of fun, but happy to be back. Unfortunately, I did see that the Orioles were not winning while we were gone. So that was sad.
Yes, very sad. But we are going to move on. And hopefully we can change your mood, because now we are going to do everyone's favorite trivia game, Who Am I? This is going to pit Mike versus John. And this, again, it is a tiered trivia contest where every single clue is worth a different number of points. And then if you get it wrong, you do go into the negative points. So the categories this evening are Orioles, Ravens, and then a general trivia question, which is worth double the points. Are you gentlemen ready?
Yes, sir.
Yes,
I'm
ready.
John? John, you don't.
I'm on a 1-game winning streak, so I am ready to go.
Yes, they say
I beat Jimmy on Sunday with Mike Piazza.
Very good. All right, Orioles question. The 5-point question. Remember, raise your hands. We either have church hands or the police in Baltimore arresting you hands. Okay, here we go. There you go, Mike. That's perfect. All right. For the Orioles, he was the team Oriole MVP for the team in 1999. And 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 5-pointer off the board. I think Mike is falling asleep with his eyes open. Okay. And
come back today, Mike?
That's just, it's allergy season. My eyes are like destroyed. Do you guys have seasonal allergies?
No, I live in Florida. We don't have
year round.
All right. Here are his stats from 1999 for 4 points. Batted .308, 28 ding-dongs, and 107 RBI. That's like crickets again.
I think I know, but I don't want to lose points.
5, 4,
John,
3,
get it right.
2, 1. 4-pointer off the board. Okay, this one is the 3-pointer or -2 if you get it wrong, as a reminder. This, in 1999, it was his lone All-Star season.
Oh, no, that's not whom I'm thinking of.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 3 points off the board. All right. 2-pointer. Again, you have to raise your hand. You cannot shout it out or you're automatically disqualified and I will mock you. All right. -2.
You're going to mock me anyway, Jason.
Correct. So you're out of luck. You don't really have much. Okay. He was drafted originally by the Yankees in the 5th round, but went to college. I'm not going to tell you where because you'll probably get it then. And then was selected number 1 overall as a catcher by the Milwaukee Brewers. John.
BJ Surhoff.
You are correct. John gets 2 points.
Circle gets a square.
Well done. Who gets a square? So John has 2 points.
I should have done that. I should have done that the first time because it was between him and Albert
I'm
Bell.
still winning because I have all the points, but that's fine. You guys are playing for.
He is one of my favorite all-time Orioles. I love BJ Surhoff. He's awesome.
Well, didn't he go to the home run? He went to the home run derby in '99. You remember that? And he barely hit any balls out of the ballpark because he had I think he had like 21 by the All-Star break or something. He was in the home run derby one year. Yeah.
I didn't think he was, but I could be wrong. He was. Do you know he was elected to the College Baseball Hall of Fame as well? He's in the College Baseball Hall of Fame.
Because he was on that Olympic team with Mark McGwire and stuff.
He was on the
'88
first
Seoul
ever.
Olympics.
He was on the first ever United States of America Olympic team for baseball. All right. Now we're going to move to the Ravens. Okay, this is where John lacks knowledge, Mike, so you can make up some ground.
I mean, in my defense, everything's still a little fuzzy. Everything's coming back into focus today. It was just a long week, so lack of sleep. You know what I'm saying? It's just so. John, we'll give you that one.
Oh, well done, Mike.
He did participate in a home run derby in 1999.
I don't remember that being a question, John. So I'm about to take a point away for annoyance. Okay, just kidding. Okay, here we go. For the Ravens category, the 5-pointer, second all time on the Ravens in sacks in a career. John, I don't see church hands or police is holding you up. Attaboy. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, 5-pointer off the board. 4-pointer. 4-time Pro Bowler and second team All-Pro once. Hmm. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay, 4-pointer off the board. I need some like Jeopardy music or something. I get really here. Okay, so this 3-point question or -2 if you get it wrong. And John currently is up by 2 points. So this is a 3-pointer. All right, get your hands ready to go. Okay, ready? 1997 Defensive Rookie of the Year. John.
Peter Boulware.
Correct. So John has a total of 5.
I should have got 5 points. I should have got the 5.
My gosh, every time you're like, I should have got 5.
Every time I know the answer for the third point, I
then grow a pair of huevos and raise your darn hand and guess. Okay? All right, Whiny McWinerson. Now, last category, Michael. You can make it all up. This could be all for nothing.
Did you give clues? Oh,
I did.
Yeah. Sorry, I missed it.
It's drink o'clock. Okay. Yeah, you guys got it before my last 2 clues. I was going to say drafted number 4 overall in the 1997 NFL draft. Okay. That's important that you're paying attention to the 1997 NFL draft. Hint, hint. And inducted into the Ring of Honor in 2006. But clearly you're too smart for me, so you didn't need those. All right. General trivia. For 10 points. The number 1 overall pick in the 1997 NFL draft out of Ohio State University. Five, 4, 3, 2, 1. 10-pointer off the board. 8-pointer. 7-time Pro Bowler and 4-time All-Pro. I'm not going to finish the question. Go ahead, John.
Orlando Pace.
Orlando Pace is correct. Mike, you got curb stomped.
I did. Like one day, I don't know. I think John has a super secret computer somewhere. Also, he loves Ohio secretly. That's the other thing. John's in love with Ohio.
I'm an Ohio State fan. So
yeah, he probably has like some. He probably has like the voice activated thing on what is that thing called? Chat MTV or something like that he's watching over there. Pull that thing up.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I don't know. Okay. Hey, feel free. Like I know I am the.
I don't know how do you know? Like, yeah, come on, Jason.
I am the greatest. Listen, I understand I'm the greatest trivia host of all time, but if anyone would like to come up with these questions next time or the time after that, I will gladly participate and whoop the hiney. So let me know when I can play. Okay, moving on. So that's our first trivia game of the night. Woo, great. Okay. Now, there's a lot going on in the NFL. Earlier tonight, I was out with the family. My daughter had an awards ceremony at school, and I got a text that Indianapolis Colts owner Jim Irsay passed away in his sleep. Ironically, as this sounds, the very first
sleep in the afternoon.
I don't know if they announced it like when they found him, and they just announced it later. Probably found him this morning, and they were doing different things and whatnot. But what I was getting at was, I wonder if this closes that Baltimore versus Indianapolis versus the Irsay window there, Mike. If this is the final straw, since now both Irsays have now moved on to somewhere. I don't really want to say.
Yeah, I'm not sure if there are more Irsays. So that's just a feeling that a generation is going to harbor forever, I think. Whereas I think time is the thing that will ultimately heal that. And just, younger people than us who came up with the Ravens, basically, and with no real recollection of the Colts, I think that's the only thing that will put that to bed. And the Irsays, whatever they did moving the team from Baltimore, they ended up winning a championship there with Peyton Manning in Indianapolis. So I guess they brought some joy to that city. Obviously, we have pain here, but never want to see that happen. For sure. And I mean, it's the name in my mind. Obviously, there's it goes a lot farther beyond than if you listen to any like sports writer, or if you read anything or listen to anybody that's still around that covered the Colts or covered the NFL back in those days.
the Irsay name is not a good thing as like humanitarian goes. Like they're just not good people. Like his father was a drunk and a womanizer and cheated on his wife and caught on national TV and stuff. Just not a real good look. Moved to Indianapolis, and then I believe Jim Irsay got pulled over a couple years ago for a DUI or something. Obviously, mistakes happen, whatever.
It was
but
drugs,
I think it was
prescription
more than
drugs.
That. Right. Yeah,
he was on prescription drugs, and he did go to rehab I believe he went to rehab several times.
So clearly he had an issue. He had a disease or somewhere in there, but that kind of thing clearly ran in the family. So, but to me, John, it really does to me. It kind of closes that. That name isn't going to be thrown around anymore. Because I don't now, I shouldn't say that because Mike, I don't know if there's any Irsays that are now still in ownership or what, but to me, it really starts closing that chapter, John.
Yeah, I think so. Cause I'm assuming the ownership will go to Irsay's kids or something. And they're probably, I would assume if he's 65, they're probably around our age. So they really had nothing. They weren't probably even born yet when the team moved. But I think there's always going to be a thing in every native of Baltimore's heart that just kind of has a disdain for the Colts. With a statue of Johnny U right out in front of M&T Bank, and I think there's always going to be that kind of, they were successful in Baltimore and then they moved to Indianapolis and it took them forever to win a Super Bowl. And
so real quick, just reading on CBS Sports, the Colts succession plan involves Irsay's 3 daughters, Carly Irsay Gordon, Casey Foyt, and Kaylin Jackson, who each currently hold the title of vice chair owner. Irsay had previously indicated that his daughters on equal footing will continue to be involved in team operations. One daughter will hold the principal owner vote, but that position is not fixed and could rotate.
Right. So, I didn't really get the feeling of like a meddling owner lately from him. So I don't know if that'll continue or whatever. If I had to guess, I would say that football ops, it would just turn over. The one thing I was going to say though, before Mike gave that information, was I never really had that feeling that I'm sure my father might have been very upset that they left at the time because he was a huge Colts fan. It never did anything for me. The one thing that it did was, as a historian, like a fan of the game and football, baseball, whatnot, and statistics as well, taking the stats from Baltimore and putting them into the record books in Indianapolis to me, and taking that to me was wrong. Because if you look at the Colts record books in Indianapolis, it has all the Baltimore stuff. Just separate it. That's the one thing that got to me. But I'm not at it at the same level as far as that goes.
The Ravens just released a statement, said, "We're saddened to hear about the passing of Jim Irsay, who was a sweet and honorable man. I had the pleasure of sitting next to NFL meetings for the last 25 years. Jim leaves a legacy rooted in passion and service for the game of football, and his influence throughout the NFL will always be remembered. We extend our heartfelt condolences to the Irsay family and the Indianapolis Colts organization. May Jim rest in peace." That's from Steve Bisciotti and the Ravens organization.
Right. I just don't think there's like an angst there between organizations or anything. I think that's more, like Mike said, more of a fan situation. Now, as far as the vote came down today on some rule changes in the NFL, and the big one was the tush push ban that was getting thrown out there, and it failed by 2 votes. So the tush push, made famous by the Eagles, Jason Kelce and Hurts and the rest of those guys, that is going to still be allowed. Mike, for me, I'm perfectly fine with it. Anything you can do within the rules in any sport. That's why it's like, I was okay that in baseball they decided to ban the shift, but the shift itself was within the rules. So if it's within the rules and you're not hitting on garbage cans and using other objects to tip off your team or using cell phones or anything like that, you're playing within the rule and kind of doing. So to me, I'm fine with this.
Yeah. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. The tush push.
He is
the tush push is back. No, I mean, like, where else is that maneuver acceptable than the football field? So
the grocery store.
I think I'm okay with it.
Have you ever been Black Friday shopping? It's allowed.
I mean, apparently that with my father.
Apparently, John Harbaugh was on board and spoke up at the meeting at some point. You know, and the Ravens were successful in using that with Kohler and Mark Andrews a little bit. So I think it's a weapon if you have a player like Justin Fields or like one of those tight end guys or obviously like Jalen Hurts. It's a big weapon for your team. It was interesting because one of the guys on our trip is a high school football coach. And he said that has been banned for years in high school. Like, you're not allowed to push anybody forward in any way and assist. That's just not a rule that's allowed. He runs a run heavy offense, and they always get called for it. So he's frustrated by it. But I don't foresee it going anywhere at the current moment, unless they find a way to tweak it specifically. I think, but I think it's just here to stay for now.
Yeah, and I mean, John, I know that the Ravens started doing it with Mark Andrews towards the end of the season and into the playoffs. I mean, I think that's fine, except for when he lines up under there, you know exactly what he's going to do at all times, because he's not the quarterback. So, but with that being said, I mean, I don't think you have an issue with it, correct?
No, not at all. I think it's a football play. You got to figure out how to stop it. And it's no different than when they, when was it Falele picked up, I think it was Hill. He picked up and drags him like 4 more yards down the field into the end zone. You got to stop it. The defense has got to figure out a way to stop it. And, last year I think we saw it where they tried to time the snap count, jump over the center, do things like that. But it's a legal play, and they're just going to stay, and either every team's going to adapt and do it, or the ones that do it are going to be successful, and the ones who don't aren't going to be on those short yardage situations. What I do like, though, is the Ravens is I just see the risk of injury for a quarterback to be extremely high, of an ankle or something. But I like how the Ravens use, the bigger body. I could see them like using Pat Ricard to take a snap and just kind of push him forward, all 320 pounds, something like that. I don't think the Ravens are ever going to use Lamar. I think they're going to worry that he's going to tear something, sprain something. But you know what? It's in the rule book. Let it go.
Yeah, and it's not really an element of surprise play. It's just you line up and go.
And Jalen Hurts, I mean, it's been well put out there that his lower body is one of the strongest in all of football. And I mean, he does a ton of work on his legs and whatnot. So it's not like, I know Patrick Mahomes got hurt on a sneak, like 4 or 5 years ago, that dinged up his knee pretty good. And now they don't do anything like that with him because they're like, oh no, that's our franchise. But these guys are like, okay, Jalen Hurts is in terrific shape. He's a big dude, like on the lower body area. So yeah, we're just going to keep doing that. And look, to me, it makes perfect sense that it's less moving parts, the better. It's the quarterback getting pushed by someone. You're not handing, you're not turning around, you're not throwing the ball. The less movement, the better, just to get the job done there.
Speaking of lower halves, did you guys see Saquon squatting like 540 pounds? Did you guys see that?
Quads, dude. Have you seen his quads?
Yes. Oh, I have. But just, I'm like, how can the bar even hold that much? That was amazing. The whole thing was just amazing to me.
Yeah, I mean, is he the one they call Quadzilla, or is that someone else? I don't know. But anyway, the dude is just insane. The next thing I have on here is flag football in the Olympics in 2028. And the NFL said that they are going to be sending, they voted to send their players if they wanted to play in there. So, I mean, I kind of have mixed feelings about it because when you have the Summer Olympics, whatnot, that's around training camp time, whatnot. And I have a friend that he's just outside of the shape that these NFL players are in a few years ago, and he was playing flag football. His name rhymes with Kike Miskey, and he tore his ACL playing flag football. So that scares me as well.
Hey, let me just clear the record that was not flag football. That was co-ed indoor arena football, one-hand touch. So, or it might have been two-hand touch.
Totally different. Nothing in common.
Here's what I would say about that briefly. Those guys are going to be in training camp anyway, and the guys who are going to be playing flag football are not your big fellas. It's going to be your guys who are running routes anyway. So they're going to be doing the same thing regardless. I guess competition kind of brings a little bit different element there because you're competing against world-class competition. And obviously they're real amped up for that piece. And there will be an injury. There will be an injury. And there will be questions about whether or not they should have. But if you're an athlete and you have that passion to compete at the world level and it's an opportunity for you to do that, I still think it's super cool and that it'll be fun to watch. Especially can you imagine our dream team of NFL wide receivers and a quarterback and running backs out there? That would be so awesome to watch. Obviously, unless your team is the guy whose guys gets hurt.
Yeah, I mean, and three Ravens pop up in mind right away. One, Kyle Hamilton already came out and said that he has some interest in playing, and I don't see why they wouldn't use him. But to me, two that I think would be really good, and I'm assuming they would have a shot, would be Zay Flowers because of how fast he is, quick he is, and then obviously Lamar. So I don't know what the team will come down to, how that'll be constructed, John. But I mean, just thinking on the Ravens side of things, I mean, those seem to be the three most popular picks in my mind, at least.
Yeah, that's who I would assume. I mean, you're not flag football. You're not running the ball. It's all about. It's basically 7-on-7. I mean, that's what it is. It's 7-on-7, and I saw an interview with a guy who was a professional flag football player or something, and he was like, the NFL guys, this game is just different than what they're playing. They shouldn't be allowed. I don't know if you guys saw him or not, but he was like a very skinny guy. He was muscular, but he's very, very skinny. Wouldn't have been anywhere to play in the NFL. But I think I would just worry about the wear and tear on the ACLs and the Achilles, and we're seeing all these non-contact injuries that I just think, if you're Lamar, you just don't take that risk. You just don't take that risk. And as the Ravens, I don't think you allow him to take that risk. Cooper Rush, absolutely. Go out there, Cooper. You're the backup quarterback. Nobody cares. But I think Zay, and I think the offensive players more so than the defensive players.
Well, John just ruined our shot at having Cooper Rush on the show, Mike. So thanks, John.
Thanks,
really appreciate
thanks,
that.
John. I think there's some financials involved. Is that what you're kind of talking about too, John? The risk as far as the financials there?
Absolutely. Because, I mean, you see it in the NHL. You see it in I know there's insurance policies and things that go along with it. But, you see it in basketball, it's the off season. You still have, you break your leg, sprain your ankle, whatever, you're going to be fine by the time the season goes around. Which, like you guys said, it's right when training camp is starting. So, but on the other hand, training camp, you're barely in pads anyway. So, maybe it is good. I don't know.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all pans out. I'll be honest, it'd be cool to watch too. Flag football is fun. It's fun to watch. So we'll see how that all pans out.
Hey, Jason, can I add one quick NFL thing?
Please, absolutely.
I saw that the Lions had originally had a proposal that would change the playoff format, and then they withdrew it at the last minute or so. But it was the fact that the best division winner would get a home playoff game, and then after that, it was just best record moving down the line. And because I saw that proposal, and Mike Tomlin of the Steelers commented how he's a big purist on divisions and how he feels like if you win a division, you win those tough grinding battles, you should get a home game. I just was curious about your guys' opinion on that. what you think of the current format versus a change in the format that could be possible. Jason, do you want to start?
Yeah, I mean, I have a problem with some teams winning, like in the same things being said. So yeah, you played these tough division games where you end up winning, so or you should keep your home game and whatnot. But what if you win 14 game, or I'm sorry, what did like the Vikings win this year? Like 13 games to finish in second place to the Lions. Okay. So what if you won 13 hard fought games? Who cares if they were in your division or not? You still won those games, but yet they had to go on the road to the Rams. So that doesn't make any sense. You know what I mean? So I would be perfectly fine. I'm surprised they pulled it back because I actually read that this was going to vote. So I don't know where they would take the division winners and then they would take the best record after that. So to me, I'm fine with that. I don't know about you, John.
Yeah, I think I'm kind of the old purist that if you win your division, you deserve to have a home playoff game. If you don't win your division, you should be playing on the road. I think regardless, you won something, you should deserve, something out of winning it, not just, you make the playoffs, blah, blah, blah. But I think, but we see it in baseball too, where AL East still have the three best records in the major leagues, yet they don't get a home playoff game, or they don't get home field advantage. I mean, in Major League Baseball, but I like it. I think just leave it as it sits. You win the division, you get a home game, and just then if you're the highest seed at the end, you get the home game.
I mean,
Mike, you don't usually change. What do you think?
How did you know that? No, so I like aspects of both of your arguments. To me, I think there's probably a way to find a happy medium in the fact that maybe there's a threshold of win number that you have to get to continue to host that home game as a division winner. It's like I don't think you should be sub 500 winning a division and hosting a home game like happened, in the NFC West, a while back. I think that's ridiculous, honestly. But if you win your division and you have a winning record, or maybe you have to have a 2 games above 500 record or something like that, you can host the home game. Otherwise, I see your point, Jason. Maybe it was remember the Ravens that one year, when the Titans won the division, it was 14-2, 13-3, something like that. They were one of the better teams in the NFL and to go and be road warriors. So I think there's something to be said for winning your division. But we both, we all know that divisions aren't all made the same. So it kind of, I see both sides to it.
No, that's a good question, Mike. No, I like that. The only other thing I was going to mention was that I think the media, Joe Burrow made a comment about the Ravens and Bengals game. And I think the media just wants to cause something and stir something up because I listened to the whole thing and there was nothing to it. Joe Burrow, according to what all the headlines say, was upset that the Bengals have to go on the road for the 4th straight year in prime time to face the Ravens. What he said was, yeah, we have to go for the 4th straight year on the road to face the Ravens. Maybe we could get a home game. Hint, hint, please. And that's what he said. And apparently that caused the whole thing. So let's stir it up, Baltimore people. Like, goodness gracious, everyone just take a break. I mean, they don't need motivation to play the Ravens, and the Ravens don't need motivation to play the Bengals, John. So I think everything will be okay.
I think it's all, come on, Joe. Joe is not one of my favorite people, but I think, man, come on. You're getting paid money to play a kid's game. You need to go out there and play hard. Know that, it's about making money. And you know how many people are going to tune in for a Ravens-Bengals game in Baltimore. You just don't really. I think he'll question talking about that and putting some even more fuel on that fire. But the NFL, it's all about the matchups and making the money, and that's what they're going to do with these primetime games.
Yeah, Mike, did you have an opinion on this?
No, you just don't like Joe Burrows because he left Ohio State. I understand.
Yeah, partially, but Fields and the other guys were all all better quarterbacks anyway.
Oh, clear, yeah, big time.
At Ohio State, they were better.
Right.
Burrow was not good at Ohio State.
You should stop speaking.
Yeah.
Joe Burrow may go down as the greatest one-year college quarterback in the history of college football.
1 year. He was not good at Ohio State. He was on the bench at Ohio State.
So he wasn't good at Ohio State, or they decided to go with the other guys?
They decided the other guys were better.
Right, exactly.
And if you're throwing to the guys that he was throwing to,
how many national championships those other guys win?
One.
Who won it?
Let me see. I'll have to look that up.
Okay, John.
Anyway, I think
Mike and I are going to move on with our lives.
Yeah, I think the Burrows comment is much ado about nothing. But honestly, I mean, who wants to travel for Thanksgiving? So I don't know. That's probably where it all comes from.
No, I mean, and that's the thing. I just think it's, what is it right now? It's May 21st. This came out like May 20th, May 19th. There's nothing else to talk about in the NFL until today. So Joe Burrow, the whole Joe Burrow comment's just going to get blown out of proportion like it did. So, well, that's all I have in the NFL. Was there anything else you guys wanted to add before we play Blast from the Past? A trivia game I'm actually allowed to play?
Well, there was one question I had for you guys. As with the Darius going down and being injured, who do you think we're going to bring in to fill that spot, or are we going to fill that spot with somebody already currently on the roster?
Mike?
Jason,
first?
Mike?
Oh, I'll go first.
Jason, go ahead.
The answer to that is yes. So they're going to possibly bring somebody in, but it's not going to be the Justin Simmons or any of those big names that everyone was clamoring about. I don't think they're going to spend a lot of money on that position. They may bring in somebody just to kind of take up some space, like help out a little bit, and then they're going to possibly go from within. What is it, Kane? There's some other guys there as well. But I see it happening internally and with a name that like isn't going to blow anyone out of the water.
No, I wouldn't be surprised to see them sign somebody. Jason, I wouldn't even say that those names aren't off the board. I just don't think they're going to cost that much at this point. And I wouldn't be surprised if there's a June 1st cut or something like that that's out there that they might be stalking, kind of having an idea of what other – they're so good at knowing what other teams' salary cap situations are and who might be on the chopping block. There's probably someone we're not even thinking about that could be available where they might have their eyes on that situation and be ready to pounce.
Well, I know Simmons didn't play well last year, and he seems to be the popular name because everyone knows his name. I wonder about like Chuck Clark. I'm not saying that's what I want him to do. I'm just saying the familiarity always seems to come back. You know, they can.
Speaking of everybody knows the name, you saw that George Wendt passed away. Norm from Cheers.
I did. I saw some Cheers stuff today. I was very sad.
Oh man, that brings back some memories.
He lived my dream.
I used to watch that show with my dad.
Nice.
My dad loves that. My dad loves that show.
I feel like that was my life back in my 20s after softball. Like find the corner of the bar at Fridays and just stay there.
Well, I thought that they might bring in Chuck Clark simply because he's well known around the locker room. He knows the coach, the coaching staff, and he's familiar with the stuff that goes on. Not like you said, Jason. Not that I want him in there, but I could see it. It makes sense, and he'd probably be a pretty low cap number too. So unless they find a June 1st cut,
right? And just something for everybody to think about, though. It's great that we might look into bringing somebody else in, but we just drafted a rookie who is now learning the system. If we have to bring someone else in from outside that now has to learn the system, that's why I think if they can promote from within, they're going to try to do that as best they can and then get some insurance from the outside. So that was my whole mindset there. I mean, and like I said, some of these big name safeties are quote unquote are still out there for reasons. So I'm not really sure what they're going to do.
Because I think they're going to play Hamilton more at that kind of linebacker rover role. And they're going to need somebody who can play back there with Starks. They may just go 2-3 three down linemen, 3 linebackers, and then Hamilton kind of in that linebacker role. Then you just need somebody to fill that extra gap, which Chuck Clark did for us for a while. So that might make a lot of sense. Who knows?
I actually don't know if that's what they're going to do with Hamilton. I know that's what they were going to do when they had a healthy Darius Washington. I'm not so sure that that's what they want to do, that they can do that now, unless they can find somebody else that can play center field and like get back there and play on that back end more. Because that was the issue that they had last year, where they had to move Hamilton back because they didn't have any help back there. So I'm not 100% sure that with that injury, unless they feel confident that they can just let him run around up there like that. So
yeah, that's why you have to bring kind of someone with experience, I think, and to go with Starks back there. But
got it.
I did see though Starks is projected to lead the rookie class in interceptions and tackles, according to Pro Football Talk on ESPN. So,
do they know something we don't? I don't understand that stuff. That's like I saw a way too early first team rookie defense. Like, how are you selecting that stuff just based on college career and what team they're drafted on? We just have nothing to talk about. That is all that's happening.
Is anyone else find it bad that if your safety is like leading rookies and tackles, that that's a bad thing? Just so you know, you're supposed to tackle them before they get to the safeties. So, not a fan.
Or all the linebackers in the rookie class are absolutely terrible. And I didn't even see Mike Green in their sack projection either. So,
all right, we have to stop talking about this. I am running on fumes, boys. So let's go ahead and get to our favorite trivia game that Jason gets to do, which is called Blast from the Past, in which we each select a former Oriole player and we give some hints, and then we see who can guess that player first. And there's no tears like Jason's crying game. There are points, no points. You just win or lose, basically. So super simple. Everybody got it?
Fabulous.
All right. Let's do it. Who wants to start? Okay, I'll start. My guy. Oh, too late. Took it. You hesitated.
Okay.
My guy. He was started in 1993 with the St. Paul Saints of the Northern League and was later signed by the Florida Marlins, where they made their MLB debut in 1998.
Wait.
Teams played for Marlins, Red Sox, Orioles, and Blue Jays.
Okay.
Career stats.
What position?
Over 12 major league seasons. Played 1,427 games with a 274 average and 170 home runs, 699 RBIs. How we doing?
Wait, you said he made his debut with the Marlins in 98?
Correct.
Okay, perfect. We're doing.
We're getting there.
Was he on the World Series? Oh, no, he wasn't because he made his debut.
No, 90s, yeah.
All right, John. Thank you.
What position did you say, Mike?
He didn't.
I didn't say what position.
Hold on here.
Because I was trying to keep you on the edge of your seat.
Year with the Orioles? Do we know that yet?
I can give you years with the Orioles. 2006, 7, and 8.
The poopy years.
And that was his age, 34, 35, and 36 seasons.
Oh, man. Okay, hold on. I'm thinking.
I have some really easy hints that I think you'll get them. But I was seeing if you could get them on some of this.
What other teams did he play for?
Red Sox, Orioles, Blue Jays. He was a first baseman.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, pissed me off. What year did he play for the Red Sox? Is he on the World Series team? Oh, it's Kevin Millar.
It is. It is Kevin Millar.
Like, what the hell?
He was very integral in the 2004 Red Sox World Series team.
Yes,
And I was going to go, then he obviously his broadcasting career with intentional talk and all that on MLB.
All right, I'll go this time. All right, so my fella played 13 seasons in the Major League Baseball. And he played for the Montreal Expos, the Los Angeles Dodgers, the St. Louis Cardinals, the Chicago Cubs, and the Baltimore Orioles. You familiar with the Baltimore Orioles? Okay. He had 463 career stolen bases. He finished second in the Rookie of the Year voting in 1990 with the Montreal Expos.
Delino DeShields.
You got it. Well done, Mike.
Good job, Mike.
You got it before. I mean, I didn't even know John could talk. I thought he was mute. He's like,
well, he kicked my butt in that other game, so I at least wanted to get something on the board tonight.
Well done. John, if this is some obscure pitcher that played 3.5 games in the major leagues, I'm going to come across this screen and kill you.
Okay, well, no, the other guy I had, I didn't know if he was acceptable or not. It was Ron Washington. He played for the Orioles in 1988. He played like 75 games or something. But I thought, you know what, that's not good. So my fellow is a catcher. He's played for the Orioles, Marlins, Rangers, Royals, Astros, Rockies, Blue Jays, Orioles, Rays, and Brewers. He won a World Series in 1997 with the Marlins. 252 career average, 88.
Not Greg Zahn, is it?
Yes.
Mm. Well done.
Did you know Greg Zahn is Rick Dempsey's nephew?
Yes, that would have been one of my first clues. Or one of my last clues for Mike.
That was going to be like my last clue there. Yeah.
Fabulous.
Yeah.
All right. Well, good stuff. Again, if anybody else wants to play Trivia Host next week, that would be fabulous. I don't mind.
I'll send you if you want to be the trivia host, I'll send you a link and tell you what time to come on and you can quiz us.
Huh?
I said if someone wants to be the trivia host.
No, I'm talking about one of you two.
Oh,
jeez. Mike, you know what I was saying?
I did. I had no doubt with what you were saying. I think John needs a translator.
I've had two drinks since we've been sitting.
All right.
I had a Coke and rum and
all right. Okay. Something. John, you're cut off from your booze and from the podcast. Goodbye. All right.
Hey, and a big shout out again to Connor Newcomb for coming on tonight and providing us with some really good insight on the current state of the Orioles. And his Locked On Oriole podcast, if you guys listen to podcasts, is excellent. And he keeps up with the ins and outs of the Orioles basically daily. So give him a tune in if you can.
For sure. All right, Mike, you want to wrap it up?
Yep, that's going to do it for this episode of Dad Bods, Crab Cakes, and Sports. Appreciate you hanging out with us this evening. Don't forget to subscribe on Red Circle, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're at it, leave us a review. It really helps us out. We're trying to spread the good word about Baltimore sports far and wide. Be sure to follow us on social media for more behind-the-scenes action, memes, and bad sports takes. You can find us at dadbods_crabcakes_sports on Instagram and at dadbods crab cakes and sports on our Facebook page. You have a question or a topic you want us to cover? Hit us up at dadbodscrabcakesandsports@gmail.com. You never know, we might just shout you out on our next episode. But until next time, keep rocking those dad bods, eating those crab cakes, and never miss the game. See you next week.
Adios.